Okay, we are live on Facebook. I think we are. Yes, we are. Okay. Hey everyone, Kamilah Bywaters here and our team. We're having education talk tonight. Our conversation tonight is around the Generation Alpha group that has been the highlight of some teachers' conversations and the highlight in some articles across the internet. So we wanted to talk a little bit about that tonight and have an engaging conversation. Again, my name is Kamilah Bywaters. I'm running for the Board of School Trustees for District E. I look forward to serving our community and just working hard so we can improve our educational system. At this time, I'll go ahead and let co-host Rodney Smith go ahead and introduce himself.
Good evening, everyone. As Sister Kamilah said, I am Rodney Smith, fresh off of the 16th annual Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Candlelight Vigil. Thank you to everyone who came out, and a special thanks to Sister Kamilah for volunteering so graciously to be one of the members of and a part of a team to carry it on. When Sister Kamilah talked to me tonight about this particular topic, I think I had just heard the term the same week that she mentioned it. And I'm wondering, how many of you have heard the term Generation Alpha? And if so, what have you heard about them? Especially you educators out there, those of you who are in the social science field. What is this Generation Alpha, and why should we pay it any more attention than any other generation? Hopefully we'll delve into some of those areas tonight.
Yeah, definitely. Did anyone else want to introduce himself while we're on? The general, Miss Amy, I don't want to leave you out. If not, that's okay. I did want to give us time to have before we go to announcements, I do want to say that I do have a partner to help, to lead and take on this wonderful visual that Mr. Rodney has done for decades. So, thank you so much for your service and really just staying committed to, upholding the event and ensuring that we had a space to celebrate Dr. Martin Luther King. So Minister Stretch, he's out there. We're going to be working together to make sure that we carry the mission and the torch that has been passed on to us. So we really look forward to working together, collaborating, meeting new people. And it's really a good time for me because I really want to engage with people that I normally have not had opportunity to engage with. So I'm looking forward to it and just getting more people involved and engaged, getting people to move from Facebook to actual activity in the community. So I look forward to just the work that we're going to accomplish together. Are there any announcements before we get started?
So as people are coming on, so what we decided to do with the Candlelight Vigils, have a team. Sister Kamilah obviously is a part of that team. Minister Stretch Sanders is a part of that team. Alex Cherub is a part of that team. Also, Sister Tequila is a part of that team. So Shaquila or Islet is a part of that team. And I'm hoping that I can get the DJ to be a part of that team so that there'll be a consistent sound system. And as we move forward, as someone who's still coming to grips with his age, and officially as we're talking about Generation Alpha, I am a baby boomer. So that means that I'm a part of the generation that was born right after the big war. And so many of us are still out there doing it, whatever it is, whatever area, whatever passion, wherever we're called. And one of the reasons why I wanted to do a public display of transitioning, of passing the baton, of passing the torch, was I wanted other baby boomers and some the generation even before me, I wanted them to see an example of how we can pass it on to capable people like Sister Kamilah. These are people who, in many instances, have been around us. So they have gotten whatever there probably is to get from us, and they're probably as ready as they're going to be to take over. And it's time for us to share what we've done with them, if they want guidance, to be there for whatever guidance that we may be able to provide, and then let them have the baton and run their race, run their leg of the race. So hopefully that came through in our presentation, and that we will see more of us boomers and even some in the generation before us passing that torch to those who are coming up next.
Awesome. I look forward to working with the team. I really do. Yes. So let's go ahead and get into our conversation on Gen Alpha. I think how we got to this conversation, there was like some YouTube or TikTok videos, and teachers were really going in on the students that are in the Generation Alpha. I'm a little bit, when it comes to students and families, I'm on the side of grace because I understand I understand that, there's so much happening. We have our children are going through trauma, families have experienced trauma. There's a lot of things going on that contribute to the way that students are acting, but the way the students act is in their behavior in class, it really can't impact the classroom environment. So I really do think that it's an important conversation to have and to listen to what teachers' experiences are, especially because some teachers feel that they're not really supported when it comes to dealing with behaviors and working with students. Just, on the real, for me, I stopped at millennials. So any term that came after millennials, I didn't really follow. So I know our baby boomers, and this is not research based. So these are just like terms that someone is coming up with, a group of people.
Not even a group. Actually,
Okay.
it's news people who it started with news reporters who came up with these terms. So there's nothing scientific about it at all. They're trying to add science to it, but really it's just a term to group people together, because for the most part, up until the boomers came along, most generations were the same as the generation before them. With the increase in technology, we started seeing the change. And of course, after the big war, there was a boom in technology. There was a boom in changing of roles. Instead of being a totally male dominant society, the men went out and worked, the women stayed home and raised the children, except in the African American community. But in the general white community, that was sort of the standard. And it wasn't until World War II, when there was a shortage of men, and women had to start taking on roles outside of the stereotype. And of course, once the toothpaste is out the tube, it's hard to get it back in. So those women still wanted to have that role when the men came back. And then many of the men had an opportunity to go overseas and see things that they had never seen before, particularly Black men. We had a chance to experience freedoms that we had not experienced. And so when we came back to the United States, we wanted those same freedoms too. And so these people started changing. And then the boomer generation took it to a different level. You remember the 60s, which really started in the 50s with the civil rights movement, a little bit more rebellious, rambunctious, and vocal. And so because there was such a strong departure of what became the baby boomers than the previous generations, that's when sort of the population boomed. And so they became baby boomers and later shortened to boomers. And then after that, we had Generation X that sort of disappeared. We've had millennials, zennials, which also kind of got merged into millennials. And then we came into what we call today Generation Alpha. And a part of what brought on this discussion was the categorization of this particular group of individuals as being markedly different in behaviors from the other students in the previous generations. And it was not positive. And that's when we decided, well, we need to discuss this, because this is going to be the biggest generation, I believe, in history. The baby boomers, what made them so remarkable also was that it was a large group of people. Well, here comes Generation Alpha that will dwarf the baby boomers.
Yeah, that was a lot of good information. So, like I said, I didn't know of the term until I saw the TikTok video, and then we discussed it. And then after we were talking about it, then you said that you heard the term after. I was like, okay, well, this sounds like a great conversation. But some of the things that the teachers are saying about Gen Alpha, they're really going in. And you all can, look up. I'll see if I can find some of the TikTok videos, but they're at the point where the teachers are saying that Generation Alpha, there's some, and this is not all students, obviously, everyone, but some students are failing. They're rude. Some of them are not able to read. And there's like teachers really saying that they're really concerned about this group even leading society. It was horrible. It was bad. I was like, oh goodness gracious, help us. And I was reading an article where they're blaming, well, a lot of the blame was being put on which generation was that? The parents of this particular generation. The millennials. See, my mom's in the background helping me. The millennials are the ones raising Gen Alpha. So they was getting it, and I'm a millennial. I was born in the millennial group is 1981. Millennials are 1981 to 1996. So, and I was thinking about that, and I was like, wow, this is a very interesting conversation.
So a part of it, every generation, the previous generation talks about how different they are and how they don't have whatever the previous generation has. And just like probably the silent generation spoke probably about the greatest generation spoke about the silent generation spoke about the boomers when it really became a thing. And then the boomers talked about generation, I believe it was X, that sort of disappeared. And you had Generation Y that kind of got combined with X. And then next thing you know, we had millennials, we had zennials, and then millennials and zennials got sort of combined. And so, but each generation, maybe it's natural, sort of like, man, back in my day, we did thus and so. Or these people today couldn't handle what I went through because I had to walk up on a snowy hill backwards. And then when I came down, I had to walk forwards. So, those things are sort of natural. But I will say that being in social science, one of the things that was predicted, and you can read reports like the Schott report on education. You can read things like maybe a little bit more political, but the Moynihan report that came out in the 60s. And there's been a couple of other papers that came out, and it projected what society would be like in the future. And it was largely based on Black people, believe it or not. And one of the things that they said was they projected a problem in society because of the number of children who did not have their fathers with them. And so this is back in the 60s that they were predicting this. And that's when the majority of the households had fathers in them, but they were starting to see that decline. And there was a decline. Even in the African American household, it had about 90% of their fathers with them, but there was a decline. And as we've seen through subsequent generations, the number of households that has first of all, a husband and wife has markedly declined. And then the number of households that actually have a father and a mother in the household. And then as we've seen gender diversity increase, we're seeing a change in it is becoming a norm to have two fathers or two mothers. And so this is some things that I think the research is still being written on it, but we do see a number of data points that are troubling. As an example, about 70% of those incarcerated are from single parent homes. 70% is pretty high. When we look at graduation rates, actually, when you look at most of the negative indicators of society, it comes back to single parent homes. Now, this is not to demonize single parents, but we're also seeing a new trend, and that is mental health issues, uh, anxiety, depression from it's happening to everyone, but we're starting to see more with women, more with single women, and a huge increase with Black women because we call them super women because they do so much. But no matter how super you are, I mean, even Superman had his kryptonite, right? Maybe our super women are their kryptonite is taking on multiple roles and the added burden of being the provider, the mom, the support system, everything now. And then when you add on the separation of the larger family groups that were more traditional, isolation due to COVID, due to income, um, we're much more dispersed. So these are a lot of indicators that have led people to be families to sizes to decrease, and just a lot of we had the crack epidemic where those the data from those children, there's some data but that's still being written. Well, those children were the millennials, a lot of them, and the millennials are now the ones who have generation alpha. And this is at the same time that mental health care throughout the country took a dramatic nosedive when it seemed like we needed it more than ever. So there's just a lot of things that have sort of joined together and that might be, emphasis on might, be exacerbating the problem with our young people and how they have been able to sort of integrate themselves in society, or according to some of the things that Sister Kamilah and I have, not integrating themselves into society. And there lies the problem.
Yeah, those are some really good points. I'm looking at some teachers explain their concerns over how Gen Alpha students are behaving in class. So one teacher has shared that one of the prominent factors is that students have too much access to social media and excessive usage of electronic gadgets. Every time I look around, the students are on social media. My children too, they're on it all the time. And sometimes a little bit too more, especially if they know I'm typing a paper. Oh, it's over. They're getting all the candy in the world. They're on social media, and I try to go back and see what they're watching. And a lot of it, I'm like, this is not even Azana. You need to be on kid YouTube. I'm not sure what type of YouTube you're on, but there is a lot of access and excessive usage of electronics. So when I've had an opportunity to go into schools to substitute on days that I can, it's to the point now where the teachers try their best. Well, the teachers actually, some of the school, they're doing a really good job of making sure the students don't have their cell phones in class. Like it's really strict, because if they were not strict, then the students would try to be on the phones during class time. And, but social media, I thought, I'm still confused, and maybe I'm not confused. I know what it's about, but there's some things that you're not able to get access to. And then the things that you think that really shouldn't be able to get access to, students can get access to it. So it's really, this algorithm is designed in a way on purpose to make sure that children do have access to things we may not want them to have access to. And then for adults who are trying to find some research or something, it's like, oh, they're either banning your page. And I'm thinking, I just saw this other page over here twerking, all kinds of stuff, and their page is up here. You over here trying to advocate, and your page is getting banned. So it's a cold world out here. But I do want to say really quick, I am going to interrupt what I was saying really quick, because I want to shout out our friends who are on the Facebook Live. Pastor Kelsey West is on, so I want to say thank you for joining us today. And also Jay Marshall is on, so thank you for joining. I also see Pastor Gordon is on. If y'all haven't heard Pastor Gordon preach, y'all better go check out his YouTube pages. And Pastor Gordon, if you could put your sessions, your link in the chat, that would be great, so we could share it. And then I think I saw Tracy come through. So I just want to say thank you to all of you who've joined in on the chat, and those who are viewing. We really appreciate you just taking the time to join our conversation. I wanted to go back to the next thing that a teacher talked about with Gen Alpha, is that they're concerned about their emotional intelligence, their mental growth, their mental and academic growth. And I've literally seen some students, and you know, every student is different. You never know, you may not know the environments that students come from, what's going on in their homes, if they live in their home, where they are. So, you know, students will be at different stages, academically, mentally. But I have noticed that some students are struggling to, one, advocate for themselves, say what they need, and I'm trying to think of my word I want to use. Let me say accept academic rigor.
You know, I want to hit on that, the communications piece. Even though we may not always speak the Queen's English, most of us speak some form of English in this country. And that's what we grow up with. Even people who are, and I see a hand up, even people who are English is their second language and English language learners, we still speak English. And this is anecdotal. But one of the things that I've noticed is I hear people speaking, and it started out with younger people. And often they're attempting to share a thought, an idea. And they will say, I don't know how to say it. Now, I don't know whether that's a trendy term, whether it's just laziness, or whether in actuality, they truly are having difficulty transferring thoughts into words to communicate. And if you're not able to share those thoughts that are up here to the rest of the world, then that becomes a problem. So then you have to ask, if it is true, then why is it true? And then what can we do about it? And Sister Kamilah, I think we have a hand up.
Yes, Miss Amy.
Hello, how you doing? I first off, I want to thank you guys for bringing up this subject, because I had never heard of this Generation Alpha, and I've been doing a little research while we're on here. And basically, what they're saying is this is the first group that's just grew up with nothing but technology. And one of my little nephews, I remember one day we were sleeping, we woke up and he had all three of our iPads doing different things, and we didn't even know he could use them. And they can find anything they want to get on there. But what bothers me more so is, like to say, they have more digital contact than they have human contact. And the digital contact now, if you look at the stuff that's on the news or whatever, it's really some messages that's being sent that we have no control over, and highly influencing them. So this is kind of a scary subject to me, but it also explains a lot when you're dealing with this younger crowd. And it's funny because they're saying they're the ones that's born all the way up through this year. So it's like, what can we do about it? I have no idea. But to do what we've always tried to do is talk to our kids and kind of work with them and keep them sane. But it's so much influence out there now that it's really hard. And I remember as an educator, every year we would always say, Lord, what are we going to do with this kid? We're in trouble. But they always manage to do better. But with the availability of weapons and technology, it is getting very scary. That's all I want to say.
Yeah, thank you, Miss Amy, for sharing that. That really sparked a lot of information for me. So I'm interested. I would really like to talk to a teacher who, I'm trying to be thoughtful with my words there, who struggles with classroom management, to kind of understand really like what their experience is. I've never really had a classroom that, now I have been annoyed plenty of times, but I'm a really strict teacher. I'm very strict. And I tell my students, look, if your vibes is cool, my vibes is cool. If y'all start tripping, I'm gonna start tripping. So I'm a very strict teacher. So I'm wondering so one teacher literally has said in her comments that Gen Alpha have been her most traumatic experience as a teacher. So I'm wondering, like, what types of behavior management do they have in their class? Are they, are they struggling in that place, or do they have good management? They maybe just have a few students who are kind of working their nerves or not like that. But I can say I have seen when I worked before I started back at, I think right before I started back at UNLV, I worked I was subbing at a charter school. And the charter school was like, Kamilah, we really need you to consider taking over one of these classes. So I would kind of peep in. It was a kindergarten class. I would peep in, and their teacher was an older lady. I would peep in. Them students made her fall. I remember looking in, the students were running around like it was what was it? The jungle gym. And it was a hot mess in there. So they were like, Kamilah, please go in there and help. And it was really like this. I remember looking in the window to see what I was getting myself into. And there was a student with the chair, running the chair around the classroom. Another student was under the desk, drawing on the walls. And so it was a tough class. And kindergarten, we should be able to handle kindergarten, but sometimes one teacher with like 30 children can be really challenging. And it was a 30 student classroom. But once I got in there and helped the teacher out, she had really experienced some trauma with the little ones. Like I said, they made her fall. And that was a big thing for the year. But once I had got in there, was able to establish discipline, structure, they did a lot better throughout the year. And I think that's one thing that I'm seeing with some of our Gen Alpha students. There's a lack of structure, discipline, and I don't know, some people may not agree with like being strict. We have to be able to give our children structure. They need to have balance. They need to be able to, before you go and do A, B, and C, you need to come in and do your homework, show me your grades. And parenting, and we've talked about this many times, parenting plays a big role in how our children show up in the world. I was not allowed, if I even considered talking back to a teacher, or, my dad would be on me like white on rice. Like it wasn't something that we were even allowed or even thought about doing. I always showed the utmost respect to teachers. But I have been noticing that students are quick to talk back. And while you're talking, they're talking too. And I'm like, no, that's, but students have to be taught, in their homes and with other adults. This is not the way to respond to adults. And it really has to be followed through. And I'm seeing a lack of follow through, a lack of structure and presence of parenting to ensure that their children are making, or at least supporting them and helping them to make the right decisions. Because one day, these children are going to be adults on their own who have to practice the structure and the discipline that should have been taught to them prior to adulthood.
So some interesting points. I think my generation became the first latchkey generation, where because there were more single parents, and even when there were two parents in a household, more parents were working. And so when we would get out of school, we had the latchkey, and hence the term. And people said we were going to turn out horrible. Now, of course, I might not be the best person to talk about how I feel like turned out, but we're still here. I remember, I'm from New York, Brooklyn, and I remember talking about super predators, just children wilding out like wolves in the parks, attacking people, et cetera, and how horrible they were. But yet, they're still here. And so I do think that that's somewhat of a generational thing. Someone is calling me. I do think that that's somewhat of a generational thing that we say that. But at the same token, I don't want to, out of hand, dismiss these concerns. And we should take it seriously because there are some things that are different. You spoke about trauma before. Our children are exposed to quantities of trauma unlike probably since the Middle Ages. Whether it's something that they experience themselves. So here's another data point. About 70%, and 70, that number keeps popping up in this data, but about 70% of child abuse cases and sexual assault cases are perpetrated by the mother's male mate. 70%. So our children are being exposed to things at home on a level that wasn't previously there, or at least acknowledged anyway. Then we have the number of homeless children. And you don't even have to be homeless to experience the trauma. I remember the general and I were coming from some event downtown, and I think we were heading to the Charleston on-ramp, and it was dark, and I seen a bunch of children run out. And it was almost a throwback to the Omega Man in the 60s with Charleston Heston. And it was like they were scurrying around. And then it came to my attention that at night, is because it's so hot in the daytime in the summer, at night, that's when the children would come out. And I thought, so we have a subgroup of humans in our city. And that troubled me. Because in order to live on the streets, you have to adapt a psychology of survival that is different from if you are in a safe home environment. And so that creates a level of chemical increases that on a sustained level are harmful to us. And then if we think about the whole psychology in general of base survival, hunting for food, finding shelter, having to protecting one's property and defending oneself. These are traumas on top of traumas, pressures on top of pressures that have the impact of rewriting our brains. Just as the other thing that you mentioned, that Amy mentioned, is technology. Technology used to be on a scale of maybe every 20 years. Then every 10 years, we would see a double increase in technology. Then it came down to every 2 years, which everyone thought, wow, that's fast. Well, now I haven't checked recently, but the last time I checked, which was actually a couple of years ago or a few years ago, technology was sort of doubling itself every 6 months. And this was some years ago. So the level of technology changing is also pressure on us all. And I was reading a psychology book, and it actually talked about technology, screens, tablets, phones are rewriting children's brains, and that children of today are different intellectually on a cerebral level than children just 20 years ago, partly due to technology and also partly due to the stressors of life that oftentimes were more adult centered than children centered, but now are right there with the children.
Wow. It definitely is coinciding with the topic. Big shout out to Robin Turner. We just did our she did a presentation on trauma and ACEs, which are adverse childhood experiences. So a lot of what you were talking about were some of those adverse childhood experiences that students may have experienced in their livelihood. It can be abuse, neglect, any type of trauma that students have experienced. And Miss Amy, she was there too. Robin did a really good job of like breaking it down. And, you know, as I'm thinking about some of what the teachers are sharing, you know, we would definitely need to be mindful of, you know, you might have to take a closer look and really see, like, has this child experienced something that's beyond what a teacher can even deal with? You know, many teachers, there are teachers out there, big shout out, who are counselors. Maybe some have changed careers and they're therapists, but most teachers are not counselors and therapists. So we're not really always prepared to deal with some of the challenges that students bring to the classroom. And we've talked about this many times, like everything really is like full circle. It's like an evolution of why every single piece is so important, because it's all connected. I think every topic that we talk about, we can always come back to like mental health. I did want to give a big shout out to my cousin Belisha. She's on the Facebook chat. Thank you for joining us today. There was one thing that came up when I was reading about young people and their social media, I guess, behaviors, I guess I could say. I was reading an article and the parents were getting upset because they were noticing that their children in their family photos were covering their face. So they were like in the picture and then they would cover their face like that. And the parents were like, why are you all doing this? This is not, you know, it's not good. People are going to see you doing that. And the students were like, no, we're doing this because if one of our friends finds this picture on social media, they're going to go in on us. And I'm thinking, wow. And there was just like a lot of pictures of young people in their family pictures and like just kind of covering their face. So we're in so that to me shows that digital importance and how important to this generation, like their presence is online and how important this technology is to them. And it really does bring in the conversation around how education needs to change to really engage this group, because a lot of them they're acting up because they're bored. There's no incentives. You know, some are acting up because yes, they have the trauma, but I've seen some teachers, listen, what the students that we have here in Las Vegas is nothing compared to students that I've worked with in other school districts. So someone asked me, hey, how are you feeling about children in Las Vegas? I'm like, oh, this is unicorn sprinkles and rainbows. I love it. So we really are not experiencing some of the challenges in schools that you may see behavior-wise in other states. But I do think it is absolutely important that we really think about what this specific group of students needs. And one, bringing the students into the conversation. We do make a lot of decisions about students, without their input. And at the last school board meeting, they were talking about graduation rates. And Mr. Rodney, I did bring up that we had a conversation about graduation rates and how are the kids graduating at this 80% rate, but proficiency is way low.
Mhm.
So I did bring up some of the things that we talked about in our meeting at the school board meeting. And one of the things that I was mentioning was that you have to bring the students into the conversation. What is it that they're missing? What do they need so that we can incorporate some of their thoughts and ideas into really improving and innovating education so that it responds culturally and it's sensitive to who they are as people?
You know, that cultural part, as we are, more cultures are sort of rising up in this country, where before there were basic Black people and white people, and they killed out all the Native Americans. So you basically have Black people and white people, with the largest percentage being white people. Well, now we have a huge influx of Latino Hispanics and a change of, adding their cultures to the mix. We have a huge influx of Asians, whether it's East Asians, West Asians, South Asian. We have Asians from everywhere, and they're bringing their cultures and their ideas and their language. And as we spoke about in previous shows, the overall process of education hasn't changed since there was only white people in school, and it didn't change when Black people finally joined schools. And now we have the dynamics of technology. We also have some other social things that are changing. But the education process has stayed the same. Well, the children of today are not the children of my generation. They're different. My granddaughter, she can get a tablet. I mean, she's doing stuff with the tablet, and I don't even know what she's doing. And I'd like to think I'm pretty much up on it, but they are learning these types of things quicker. But there is a downside to the tablet usage. And there is, again, another data point is children who read by electronics, digital, tablets, phones. Their comprehension level is not the same as children who read on more traditional mediums, mainly books, magazines, things that are actually written on the board. And as we're moving more into this technological education, we should be cautious and pay more attention to it, because though I think the children are smarter and more able to adapt to the technology, but what happens when power goes out? And I'm just throwing that as an example. I was someplace and there was a problem with a signature. The person didn't really know how to write in cursive, and they needed to actually sign something, and they weren't able to. So as technology is advancing, the education process has stagnated, but our children's brains are being rewritten because of the technology, because they adapt to what's there much more so than us adults. So there's a disjointedness between those three things that we need to catch up to, and we need to get them to coalesce with one another.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, we have a lot of work to do. And one thing that's really, really important to me is that our students are able to live a productive life. Like, being able to, I want them to be able to live on their own, be able to take care of their finances. And that's what really concerns me if we don't prepare our students, this Gen Alpha group and all groups, if we don't prepare them to at least have the basic foundation to be able to read, that is very important. We bring that up all the time. Reading, writing, to have critical thinking. So if you run into a problem, it's not, no, you don't stop. It's you figure out the next plan, you figure out the next plan until you get to where your goal is. And for me, that is absolutely important that we have young people who are able to, one, help their family, help society, and to not just be kind of a weight that everyone else has to take care of and lead, especially when they're capable of being a productive person and accomplishing their goals. So that's one thing that's really important to me, because I've seen people who struggle to take care of themselves as adults. So I'm really concerned about that. And I really do believe that if we're able to, with the presentation that Robin gave, like, there are interventions for students who are, for people in general and young people, to be able to, change the trajectory of their life if they've experienced any types of hardships, abuse, neglect that is severely impacting them. And then there's one point I wanted to make. I wanted to, because I have been thinking about this, is that there are parents, and shout out to the parents who are absolutely present, who do everything they can to instill discipline and structure. And there are some times when humans make their own decisions. They make their own decisions. They're not listening to anything that they didn't listen to the guidance and the structures that their families were given. So I did want to make that point, that I don't think it's always a situation where a person has been neglected or went through some trauma. There could be situations where a person just decides to make their own life choices and it doesn't necessarily work out for them. Yeah, this is a great topic. I'm always interested in what our young people are going to do with their futures. I asked them. I had a really good group the other day. I had some middle schoolers who, some were already business owners. So I was hopeful. Some who were business owners, some who were thinking about what they were going to do, some who didn't know what they were going to do. And my advice to them was, as you're young, explore, try everything you want. Because when you get older like me, I was like, oh, I should have went to law school. If I could have done everything differently, I would have definitely gone a route of law school. And if I had opportunities to really explore different careers, I would have picked law school instead of the direction that I've gone. But, I'm thankful for my direction. I'll be finished soon. But that's my advice for young people. Try, see if you can get an internship with a lawyer, get an internship with the doctor, get one with the entrepreneur, try different things to see what you like, so you can change and, flip flop back and forth if you want. And so when you get older, you won't say, oh, I wish I could have, would have, should have. But that's one advice that I do have for young people, is to try new things.
I'm glad you said that, because I attended a forum with, I believe it was Pastor Kelsey West, Kyle West, Shondell Newsom, and LJ Edmondson. Just the tail end of last week, I believe it was. I wasn't able to stay for the whole thing because I had something else to do. But it was it was Thursday night, because they were going to do the men's room, and then I went to the men's room to find out that the men's room decided they were going to join this. Oh gosh, Pastor West is on there. If he could type in the name of the forum that it was, but it was interesting. Had a lot of younger Black men in the audience, and one of the things that I believe it was Shondell hit on, and then Pastor West talked about internships and the importance of them. But as he was speaking about it, and as you just spoke, one of the things I thought about was he kind of fell into it, right? But it enhanced his life. And he talked about what it exposed him to that he otherwise wouldn't have been exposed to. And Shondell Newsom spoke about how he has had interns in his business for, I believe, decades. But how many people, how many parents know about internships? How many internships are relayed to schools so that schools can relay them to children. And in businesses in general, are they looking to establish internships in their business for our community? And so these are things that we probably could do a better job at sharing these things, because oftentimes it's not that children may not want to do something, they simply may not be exposed to it. So that exposure piece on this is huge. My daughter is a counselor in school, and she tells me about the many issues that she encounters. A lot of them they do stem from family issues. And it was called The Ultimate Measure of a Man. Thank you, General, for finding that and posting it. The Ultimate Measure of a Man, a great event. I'm sorry I wasn't able to attend all of it. And we need more events like that. And that's something that we're going to have to do for ourselves, because looking for other people to save us, they haven't saved us yet. As a matter of fact, from what I hear X45 saying, they're trying to bring back some things that's just the opposite of saving us. So if we want these things to happen, we're going to have to look into our own communities, our own neighborhoods, our families, our circles of influence to bring about some of these things that are needed.
And Rodney, what you said is very important, because I feel when I was a counselor, my best tool was sitting down and talking to kids and having conversations with them. And as I would go back and sub, if they were referred to my office, a lot of times before they could get in my office, they had contacted their parents, and their parents were on the phone telling me I better not talk to their kids. So that's where technology has been a big interference. And I understand why some of the parents were so scared for their kids to talk to adults. But that was the one tool I feel I had. Kamilah can tell you if I'm right or wrong. That was the one tool I felt was sitting down and talking to kids about what was going on in their lives or whatever. But technology has taken that out a lot too. And a lot of the kids and parents are afraid to communicate with the schools. And that's until they get mad, then they want to come down and yell and scream. And we have to be able to sit down and talk about it. Sit down and have conversations.
Yeah, thank you, Miss Amy. Really quick, Chris Solomon, big shout out to Chris. I saw him this weekend at the parade, the MLK parade. He said that exposure is important, and he's definitely finding that struggle in getting youth to be politically engaged. I don't know what we're gonna do. I don't know what we're gonna do.
But that might have something to do with their parents not being politically engaged. Just like we have a shortage of recruiting people for the young people for the military right now. Well, the military has shrunk, and we know that the majority of people join the military, their parents probably were in the military, right? So like a family affair. We tend to follow in the footsteps of our parents, whether we want to or not. Oftentimes, that's just how it works. Well, when our children aren't exposed to politics by the parents, and then it looks pretty dirty. I participated in it, and every night I felt like I had to come home and take 2 showers, one just regular and the other one to wash off the dirtiness of politics. So, and we talk about it, and I just fell into that trope. We talk about it very negatively. Well, who in their right mind wants to get involved in something that is looked at so negatively? And so us adults, including myself, have to talk about these things differently and make it more attractive. If the general can put the quote from the last Friday's gathering, it was talking about making things more attractive. And I wish I could remember that quote, because maybe us adults at whatever generation we happen to fall in, maybe we need to talk more positively about many things, whether it's politics, parenting, education, reading, learning. Maybe we just need to talk, or not only, but maybe that's one of the things that we need to add to the many things that we need to do, is talking more positively about some of these areas so our children will be more apt to engage with them.
Yeah. Darn it, we've made it to 7:02. And time goes by quick in conversations. But the one thing I wanted to say about the internship is when I went to Rancho High School, I was a part of the magnet program, and I was on the allied health portion. And I decided to do sports medicine. And during my internship at a sports medicine doctor's office, when the doctor took this long needle and put it in this lady's kneecap, that's when I knew, this ain't for me. This is not for me. And
I did it for you.
Not for me at all. Can't do it. Now, then my friends were in nursing, and some of them ended up becoming phenomenal nurses. And then I learned like that wasn't for me either, because you have to think really quick. And I don't think really quick about medical numbers and stuff like that. So like, that's not for me either. But I was just saying that to say that, and that's how an internship really helped me. I was a little delayed in deciding what I wanted to do a little bit, because I wanted to be a teacher because it was always a part of my life. But I was trying some other things as well. But anywho, we've made it to the end. I do want to give some shout outs really quick, some more. Big shout out to former Assemblyman Wendell Williams for hosting again with his team the MLK parade. It's always like a family reunion. Had a wonderful time. And I also want to shout out to Shaquilla, who walked with my family and I promoting my campaign. So that was really fun. We had a great time. And the weather it was perfect weather for a parade. So I'm really glad it didn't rain on our parade. And Ray Long, hey Ray, just logged in. She said she tuned in late, but she truly enjoyed what she was able to catch, and she learned a few things. So that's always our goal, to share something that we haven't thought of before and move on from there. Are there any last thoughts before we close? Or announcements?
Well, while we're waiting for some folks to give those announcements, first of all, thank you all for joining us. We know this is a Tuesday night after a long weekend, a day of service yesterday in recognition of the birth of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Once again, big shout out to all of those who came out to the Candlelight Vigil, the 16th annual, and my last one. Thank you so much for supporting me over the years. And a part of it was about education, sharing the legacy of Dr. King, but also what makes ours unique is we give the people from the audience a chance to share what Dr. King meant to them. So thank you all for that. And Sister Kamilah, thank you for co-hosting it with me on the spur of the moment. And see, I wanted to share that because Sister Kamilah is running for school board trustee of District E. And we need someone who can flex with the moment, because our children are living in a dynamic environment, and we need someone closer to them to have a better understanding of them. Someone who has history in the district, someone who's brought up in the district, someone who's taught in the district, someone whose children are in the district. That's what Sister Kamilah brings to it. And she brings something else. She brings you this show every Tuesday night with hopefully what will be interesting, engaging, timely, and pertinent topics to cause us to think and to engage with her, to help prepare her for things that she may need to deal with once she becomes that school board trustee. And I would venture to say that once she becomes the trustee of District E, whether it's this show or some other forum, she will still figure out some way to have direct engagement with her constituents. How many times do we complain about our elected officials getting elected and then they disappear until it's time to ask for our vote for the next election? Sister Kamilah is not even a trustee, and she's doing trustee work right now, engaging with her community and with the community at large. That's the type of person you want to have on the school board. The type of person who will answer the hard questions, but also when she doesn't know, is willing to acknowledge it, but then go and research it and bring you back an answer. That's what you have with Sister Kamilah Bywaters for District E. I am a huge supporter because I want the best for our children, and Sister Kamilah will represent the best that her generation has to offer, or any generation. So thank you, Sister Kamilah, for allowing me to be a part and for giving me an opportunity to see you grow into the person that you are.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I have grown, and I don't believe that I have arrived anywhere. I really do enjoy learning, and I look forward to growing in every moment, every conversation. I am a reflective person, so I'm always thinking about how things can be better for all of us. I do have some ideas that I would like to implement once I become a trustee, to ensure that I'm engaged with the community. There are some thoughts out there that from some trustee members that I've had an opportunity to hear from, that trustees can be engaged with their communities and they don't have to. So, and I thought that was very interesting to me, but I'm on the side of, oh no, we're going to be engaged. You're the schools that I would represent. You're going to know me. We're going to have a great time. We're going to do whatever we need to do to advocate for District E and to ensure that all education is a great place for everyone and that every child can have a quality education. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. We look forward to our next conversation. We'll be on next week. Tuesday, there's quite a few events. Ray Kennedy is running for judge in one of those municipals. So I think it's District 5. Anywho, I'll put the flyer on my page because she has a campaign kickoff coming up. And then Robert Twix Taylor also has his campaign kickoff coming up. So you all, as candidates, we need support. We need volunteers. We need fundraising money so that we can win. And we look forward to doing the best work that we can in our communities. The individuals that I have mentioned are great people. They're willing to do the work and do whatever it takes to be engaged in our community. They're actually already engaged in the community. And I think that's something that's really important. Like when you're looking to vote for people, look for people who have already been doing some type of work. They didn't just show up all of a sudden. I really don't understand. I'm like, how does person think they're gonna run for governor and I ain't never even seen you on the low grounds? I don't understand it. Anywho, there are people out there who've been in the game for ages, really serving the community, getting to know the community. And then when the timing is right, they run. So make sure you do your research. If you don't know who to vote for, ask your friends, ask your closest relatives, look to see who some of our respectable organizations are endorsing. Get on conversations like this to meet with candidates and to talk with them, because 2024 is very important. Every election is very important. The judges are very important because they make decisions about you now. So those people are very important about the decisions that they're making about your friends and family members. So it's important that we're engaged. Anyway, Kamilah Bywaters, I'm running for the Board of School Trustees in District E. I look forward to continuing to serve this community and continuing to do Facebook Live education talks. If you would like to meet with me, please contact me, 725-500-2111. All my information is already out there. So, I mean, I continue to share and say, why am I giving out my real phone number? But that's okay. It's already out there, like everywhere. I tried to get a Google phone number, but it doesn't work. It takes away my old phone number. So anywho, I'm available. I'm here. My email and website, CamilahForNevadans.com, CamilahForNevadans@gmail.com. So if you want to get together, have a conversation about what my plan is for the district, please, let's talk. And we look forward to having a conversation with you next week. Thank you so much.